It has a lot of uses. Depending how you count, I counted 114 last week. And it includes a lot of agricultural uses and non-agricultural uses. It is basically used above ground as a foliar spray on top of the ground. It isn't generally incorporated into the ground. It was re-registered, that was that one registration program, in 2004, fairly recently. And when we did the risk management associated with re-registration, the real key for carbaryl is the risks from food were below our LOC. That's the level of concern. That means that we have confidence that there's reasonable certainty of no harm from the pesticide, and we can renew all the tolerances for carbaryl. However, so that's big, because if you don't meet that standard, then you've got real problems for your pesticide. We do have some concerns for wildlife, from risks from residential exposure and from risks from occupational exposure. And depending upon the crop we did, or the use pattern, we did some different things. For aquatic wildlife, and mostly for aquatic wildlife, in one case we canceled the use. We canceled the wheat use. For some other uses, where there were alternative application practices, we restricted the aerial application. Aerial application tends to drift a lot farther, no surprise there, so more of it gets into water. So we can control the exposure to water and the risks if we just restrict aerial application. But the benefits are high, so we only did it in cases where there were other good alternative application practices. We reduced the maximum application practices for mosquito control and on citrus. So here's 3 different things we did on different crops to control risk from wildlife. For residential risk, we found there were different risks from the granular and the dusts than from the liquids. So we canceled, for homeowner uses, the liquid formulations. We canceled most of the pet uses because that requires a lot of hands-on use, everything but the flea collars. And to control the risks from the shakers that like you use on your roses, we limited the size of the can you could use. That limits how much you'd be applying at one time, and that's how we limited the risks there. That I thought was really innovative. For occupational risk, we got rid of some applications like belly grinders or spooning it over the crop that there would be a lot of spillage and a lot of potential for skin contact. And for other uses, we required PPE, which stands for personal protective equipment. That can vary from anything from wearing long pants and a long shirt all the way up, not for carbaryl, but for some chemicals, wearing a moon suit and a respirator. So those are the kinds of things we did, and we did all these different kinds of things for carbaryl depending upon the particular use pattern. When we do pesticide, when we do our risk management, we don't work in a vacuum. We have to work with a lot of other people. In particular, we have to work with the states. We have quarterly meetings of a couple different kinds where we meet with the states to talk about risk management issues and contamination of water issues and things like that. Some states basically just rely on what we do, and if we approve it, they approve it. Other states like California have a whole registration program of their own, up and above our own. So it varies from state to state how much they do beyond what we do. We are cooperating more and more with the NAFTA countries, Canada and Mexico. We are actually doing joint pesticide registrations for new chemicals with these 2 countries and working on them at the same time with the same data sets and sharing some of their work. This lowers the cost for the pesticide companies, and pesticide registrations are expensive, and makes it a little easier on us. We're also working with Europe. One of the things we did with them was harmonize our study design. So for the same type of study, you didn't have real slightly different requirements in the United States and in Europe. You could use the same study to meet both requirements. We meet a lot with grower groups. the cranberry growers. If we might be regulating a pesticide they use, we'll contact them. We'll ask them about the benefits. We'll ask them about alternatives. And we have a lot of contact with public interest groups who are interested in pesticides and get a lot of feedback from them. We don't do a lot of field work ourselves. We don't do a lot of experiments ourselves. We basically are an information sponge. We pull in information. We get data submitted by the registrants, but a lot of our information comes from the grower groups, from other government agencies. Something we have trouble getting is information on non-agricultural pesticides. How much is used around the home? Where is it used? Where is it used in the country? That kind of use information is not out there. We're trying to find better ways to get that because it would make for better risk management decisions. We're also always looking for new tools and better ways to assess the risks. In particular, and I've got some examples in my talk this afternoon about better ways to assess in residential settings, but there's more improvement needed there. Okay. This is my summary slide. How can you help us do a better job? And that is through our new registration program called Registration Review. Re-registration is ending. We're starting this new program. All pesticides need to be reviewed for their risks and their benefits every 15 years. And it's on a rolling schedule. We started it this year. We started registration review of 25 pesticides. We're going to do 45 in 2008 and 44, 45 each year after that. The schedule for registration review is on our website. I have the address there. And we'll give a summary of what we think the risks and benefits are, but we'll ask for specific information we're interested in. But if you all out there or the grower groups or interested parties have other information you think would help us, this is an opportunity to send it in. And we're hoping that this kind of a format is going to get us better information for doing risk management decisions. I tell you, when we make a risk management decision, in the absence of information, we usually make a limiting conservative assumption. And we tend to be pretty conservative. So the more information we get in, usually the less conservative and more likely we can say a pesticide is okay to use. As I finished, I first wanted to acknowledge help from a few people. I had two colleagues, Karen McCormick and Jim Hetrick, review my slides, and I got a few extra slides from Nelson Foreman, but this whole talk is really the product of the 1,000 people in the Office of Pesticide Programs in toto. So I'd like to thank all my colleagues, and I'd like to thank you all for your attention.